That time I got reincarnated as a demon lord, English, by LordedoMal44. 09 Problems on the trip Dorgon. Its full name is actually the Armed Nation of Dorgon, and it is one of the most powerful nations in the world. The nation's strength is such that Dorgon has been considered undefeated in every war of the last millennium, even when it shares a border with the Eastern Empire. This made Dorgon the mainstay of Western nations, serving as the main shield against the attacks of the Eastern Empire. The Dorgon system, unlike most Western nations, is quite liberal, accepting all types of creatures as long as they are intelligent enough to respect the laws of the nation and do not engage in battle within the nation. Furthermore, thanks to the exchange system, even the creatures that inhabit the Great Forest of Jura could get money to make their purchases. In the end, Dorgon became a trading hub of the world where everyone, including intelligent monsters living in the Forest of Jura, would choose to travel in order to obtain the goods they desired. Quickly stop them coming from the side, and the kobold traders within the Jura forest, small and weak like goblins but dog-headed, were an example of those who made these trades. They crossed the forest, facing its dangers to exchange items that came from groups of monsters through the forest, coming from tribes of different races, exchanging them all in Dorgon. There's one on the other side too. You have to get him away before he catches up with us. And, of course, these trips are too dangerous for the kobolds, which is why the kobolds hired their own bodyguards. That way the group would have someone who could protect their lives and their goods on their way to Dorgon. Damn. 5 of them are too many. We can barely face one of these things alone and it's still too much, but 5. But who would the kobolds hire? What they would certainly like would be ogres, beings capable of defeating a dragon, but proud ogres would not sell their services to creatures as weak as the kobolds. In the end, the race that had already refused to work for some demon lords would not work for the kobolds. But why are 5 of the blade tigers together? They're territorial, they never work together. Lizard men weren't an option either for a similar reason. They were too proud, thinking they were the descendants of dragons, so the group would never accept working for kobolds. Also, outside of the swamp that protects them, lizard men lose all their speed, their biggest advantage, and wouldn't be much stronger than trained goblins. We're seriously going to die here. This made the goblins, who understood what it was like to be weak, the only viable option among the main races of the Jura forest that would accept working for the kobolds. But goblins weren't that much stronger than kobolds, so there was no point in that, other than hiring their evolved forms. Hobgoblins and goblinas had strength not unlike human adventurers, which would be perfect for keeping them safe on the way to Dorgon. They killed the horses. We have no way to escape. And this all brings us to our current situation. Standing on the side of the bumpy road was a kobold carriage, its dead horses just ahead. The front right wheel had broken, tipping the carriage and goods to the ground, making it impossible for the goblins and kobolds to escape. What were they trying to run away from? That was easy, they were running away from monsters. The blade tiger, one of the most dangerous beasts on the way to Dorgon, was the monster that attacked them. He resembled a saber-toothed tiger, had a red fur with a black part, a pair of white sabers protruding from his canine teeth and extending as far as daggers. 5 of them attacked at the same time, an unheard of number for a territorial race, who usually keep their distance from each other. The only possible explanation for this number would be that it was the tiger's early mating season, and in that case, the kobolds were just too unlucky. Damn. If only we had one more person on our side. Hobgoblins and goblinas with a little more experience can handle one of these tigers in normal situations, if it was a group against one and even then with difficulty, but facing the 5 in front of them at the same time was impossible even for the human adventurers. Also, thanks to the broken carriage, they couldn't even run away. If only he were here. Against 5 of these tigers, even 3 hobgoblins and 2 goblinas, 5 combat-experienced fighters, would have a negative chance of victory. It was not possible to allow the kobolds to flee. With those numbers, the only thing the goblins could do was defend themselves and the kobolds as best they could while they waited for some kind of chance to open up or maybe some kind of miracle to occur. Boom, and maybe it did. For a second the clouds seemed to gather, and the next moment a black bolt fell from the sky, turning one of the tigers to dust in an instant and creating an explosion that stunned and drove them all away. The goblins were not even able to understand what had just happened before they stood up with their weapons in hand, already prepared for combat as a result of all their experience and training. The tigers, on the other hand, had not yet recovered from their stunned state. The black ray fell beside them and their skill, super hearing, only served to amplify its effects. Even getting up, the tigers were unable to regroup. A big mistake that defined what the outcome of this battle would be. A greenish figure passed through the cloud of dust, which covered the entire area after the lightning struck, and the figure's owner wasted no time in using its mass in a downward attack on the tiger. The blunt movement over the tiger's head with an ordinary weapon would normally be ineffective, at least if the attacker didn't have great physical strength, but the strange glow over the mass indicated that this weapon had traces of magic, which explained the why did the tiger's head break on impact. The goblins and kobolds could only watch in awe as the person had blown off the tiger's head in a single frightening blow of instant death, the kind of power that only legendary figures should possess. After all, who else could defeat a rank B monster so easily? Rimuru-sama, have you taken care of the rest? Yes, Gobuta-kun. All resolved, and when the smoke cleared, this kind of exchange was what the goblin mercenaries received. On one side, the one holding the dough was a goblin in rough clothes, almost wild, but holding a dough that looked like a true sacred treasure, and the dough covered in blood was an obvious indication that he had been the one who hit it on the tiger. On the other side was a silvery blue slime with the other three blade tigers, which are B-rank monsters, rubbing against it as if they were ordinary house cats. Are you happy now, Gobuta? Now I won't be carrying you around all the time. Use one of the tigers as your mount. Thanks, Rimuru-sama, I just can't understand why you like to run so fast, Sue. Because I like to feel the wind in my hair, ahahaha. Again, a meaningless exchange was heard between the goblin and the slime, and the goblins and kobolds could only watch in amazement as the two talked next to the tigers, who did nothing at all, while the slime struck a pose as if to stand out the beautiful non-existent hair on her head. A goblin and a slime of questionable gender defeated 5 fearsome blade tigers, killing 2 and taming 3 of them, contrary to the entire logic of the Jura forest food chain. Rimuru-sama, shouldn't you have at least let Ranga come with us? He insisted so much on coming, and he's not as quick as you. No, Ranga and the wolves were given their own mission, just as important as ours. That's the same reason I didn't let Rigger and the others come. Otherwise, how long will it take until our much-desired Goblin Kingdom will be born? When the slime's androgynous voice spoke, Goblin Kingdom, the mercenary group shuddered, as if hearing the name of their race woke them from the trance they were in. This idea was preposterous. The goblins must be too weak for something like that, and even 2,000 of them banding together wouldn't be enough to match the forest ogres, who were only 300. How could such a kingdom arise? Still, no one could identify any hint of a joke in the slime's words or the conviction the goblin had as he nodded at the slime's words, which made them look more seriously at the two of them. And at that moment, all eyes widened as they looked at the goblin. Wait. You're that goblin, aren't you? The brave goblin of that day, who saved our lives and defeated a blade tiger with virtually no need for help. There was no mistaking the red-haired goblin who muttered those words. After all, she could never have forgotten his face. Originally weak and despicable, that had been her original opinion of him, but after seeing him face off against the blade tiger to buy time for the others and nearly defeating the beast alone and almost unarmed, her opinion about him has changed. In the end, there was no way she could forget the face of the goblin who had asked her to be the mother of his children, a proposal she regretted having turned down. There was no doubt, this was the same goblin from that day. Gobuta-kun? Defeating a blade tiger alone? That's impossible. No, Rimuru-sama. I even told you when we started hunting tigers that I had fought one of them before. The group couldn't help but be surprised. After all, no one in their right mind would hunt blade tigers, but here they were stating those thoughts so calmly. Still, the result was before them, and besides, if it was he, the two goblinas felt it was possible. But how did you? How could I forget? My love, I found you again. Gobuta didn't think twice before running towards the red-haired goblina and kneeling before her, holding both her hands. This action caused the green cheeks to be painted an intense red hue, causing the goblin to look away in embarrassment. Looks like you kept your promise. You're much stronger. Yes. I promised you I would get stronger. Strong enough that you wanted to be with me. And now, I even got a name. My name is Gobuta. Gobuta. The green face changed to another shade of red, even more intense, as she murmured the name of her beloved, with a charming smile on her face. And while the two were distracted in their own world, the others were talking, much more seriously than either of them. So, you are the kobold traders that Rigurdo told me about. Rigurdo is the name of an elder from the goblin village of Gobuta, currently one of my subordinates. Really? If he's from the same village as Gobuta-kun, then I guess who he is. I should pay him a visit later. By the way, thanks for saving us. I think we owe our lives to you. Don't mind that. It's certain that Rigurdo would like me too. The slime was talking to the kobolds, seeing the broken carriage by the side of the road. The entire group, not only the kobolds but the goblins as well, were amazed that this was the first time they had seen a slime, an inferior monster that possessed enough intelligence to speak, even more so when considering the fact that slimes were considered the silliest creatures in existence. I am the current leader of the goblins of that village, Rimuru Tempest. It is my pleasure to meet you. What are your names? I looked around at the three hobgoblins in front of me, seeing their expressions change to a more confused expression. I found this reaction strange for a second until a voice reminded me of something. Monsters don't usually have names. We evolved naturally after gaining many magicules thanks to the efforts of others in our village, but we never received a name or protection from anyone. I see. Maybe I forgot since I spent time with the ones I named, although it was only 2 days. But monsters don't usually have names, which is totally normal for them. I don't have any difficulty communicating with the goblins in front of me, but I feel a little uncomfortable that they don't have a name. So what do you think about me giving you names? Do you want to be my subordinates? The 4 goblins, including the goblina who was trying not to pay attention to me, looked at me with expressions of surprise at such a proposal, although the goblina who was with Gobuta didn't even seem to have heard my words as she was so distracted. Well, it's natural to be surprised when you receive this kind of proposal, even more so when it comes from a slime. Well, now I can be the most powerful slime in the world, right? Haha, as if that was ever going to happen. I thought about that as I waited for their response, wondering if they would even consider the possibility, but... And why would we serve a weak little slime like you? The goblina ignoring me looked a little annoyed as she said this, her attention directed to me for the first time. Her eyes stared at me as if the difference between us was the difference between Lux and trash, making it clear that she despised me on account of my race with just the look in her eyes. I'm a goblina, a member of the Goblin Master race, and I'm even capable of using magic attacks and battle wills. Why should I serve a humble little slime like you? I started to smile inwardly, thinking what it would be like if I released my suppressed aura or if I mimicked my form like the Stormstar Wolf, just to scare her to the core so this brat understands I'm not weak. A part of me even thought about using Predator on her and acquiring a humanoid form, with my much-desired taste buds back, and I wouldn't even care if I had to stay like a hobgoblin or a goblina because of that. But I held back my clearly dangerous thoughts, of course. If she were a human, maybe I would do such a thing, but she's a monster. What I really felt like doing was making her kneel on the floor, begging for my forgiveness. Well, it's true that you have some aura, but don't expect that having that much aura would be enough for us to submit. I stared at her, seeing the way she blurted out those sharp comments, and my more sadistic side began to awaken. I really wanted to punish a tsundere like her, let alone one as beautiful as she is, but I have to do everything right if I want everything to end well. That was why, on the outside, I kept my business smile as I assessed her. Black hair flowing straight down to his waist, black eyes, and a pair of moon tattoos etched into his cheeks, a crescent and a wane. She had both the mystical air of a mage and the physique of a warrior, something you would never expect to see. She's arrogant, but on top of that, she's strong and beautiful, and I want her at my feet. No, I will definitely have her at my feet. I apologize for our friend here and the other one who got too distracted with her beloved one. She has a sharp tongue, but it's just that she just wants to serve someone stronger than her. That's all, believe me. Do not worry. The two of them didn't seem to have noticed the fact that I was the one who used my skill, Black Lightning, to kill one of the Blade Tigers and save their lives, but I decided not to tell. They're underestimating me for my race. This will be useful as the surprise caused by revealing my strength will be even greater. I'll have them all begging me to allow them to serve me, especially this goblina. Well, what do you think about going on our trip together? It might be good for both of us. After all, I don't want to separate the lovebirds. I muttered this, seeing how that Goblina and Gobuta were still in an atmosphere of their own, knowing they would soon be separated. I don't need my subordinate depressed, so let's give him a little more time. It might be a good idea. Do you want our protection? Don't you have that hobgoblin that killed a blade tiger? Why would you need us? I glared at the Goblina, who interrupted their leader, not losing my business smile. I'll really make this girl regret. Well, it would be nice to have company, but our horses died. I don't think we can match your tigers. The leader resumed the word while ignoring the Goblina's comments, who complained with an expression of disgust as he pointed at the dead horses. The teeth marks made it clear who the culprits were, those being the 3 tigers behind me, who looked away when I glared at them. So, since you're guilty, why don't we use these 3, at least until Dorgon, so you could get your own horses? I felt the tiger's eyes drop to my back in protest, but I ignored them. They will only have to carry the burden they dug for themselves, so it's just punishment for them. With that, a few minutes later, in which we fixed the chariot and attached it to 2 of the tigers, with Gobuta and the red-haired Goblina going in a third, I, the kobolds, the goblins, and that sharp-tongued Goblina resumed our journey.